This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Sauce here. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week I'm going to talk to you about believing in and supporting our students. I want to put my thoughts into some context for this week as we get started. If you've seen these videos before, you've seen me advocate for optimizing the experience of students and instructors in class. You've seen me advocate for optimizing the engagement of those instructors and those students in class. You've seen me advocate for bringing peace to our class. Peace being an acronym that stands for preparation, expertise, authenticity, caring, and engagement. I advocate that we infuse empathy through our empathetic course design in all the ways in our classes, from everything from how we craft our syllabus, to our course structure and policies, to our assignments and our assessments. Recently, we had some videos where we talked about maybe we should reconsider giving exams in class, and maybe even substitute those traditional exams in class with exams that students write and take for themselves. These are things that we call exams by you. We argued that other ways to have students demonstrate their learning in these meaningful personal ways might be a more inclusive and less stress-provoking way for students to demonstrate their learning in your class, and therefore might be more empathetic. My colleagues, Noah Rankin and Ashley Schiffer, and I, we actually wrote up a piece for Faculty Focus. We'll drop the link in the description of this video, where we talked about reasons to reconsider giving exams in class. I also recently wrote an opinion piece for Inside Higher Ed that we'll put a link to in the description as well, that talks about the need to bring peace to our students in class. So what we're doing is we're getting at our ideas in lots of different ways, and we're starting to get feedback on our ideas. And a lot of this feedback is positive. Just last week, I was at a conference where someone who had seen me talk about exams by you last year said that they were using exams by you in their classes and that they and their students love it. My son recently had a basketball tournament, and after the tournament was over, I went up and, good game the coach, and the coach actually said he had seen one of my videos and told me about all the ways that he's having his students express their learning through meaningful and personalized projects in his biology class that he teaches. And just this past week as well, I had two students come up to me with tears in their eyes, expressing their appreciation for how I dealt with issues that they were facing empathetically in my classes. I was talking to one of my colleagues recently about how I infuse empathy into my classes and how I explicitly and clearly tell my students that I believe in them and that I support their learning and their success. In the fall semesters, I teach a course called The Psychology of Prejudice. This is a learning community course for first-time, first-year college students. And about midway through the semester, I took the opportunity to tell them that they belonged in college, that they were valued, and that they deserved to be here, and that all of them had the opportunity to succeed at this level. I wanted my students to know that I was genuinely rooting for them. Rather than being an obstacle to their success, I wanted them to know that I was a facilitator of their success, that I was going to do everything in my power to empathetically support their learning and their success, and that they deserved that because they belonged in my class. At the end of this class, one of my students came up. She was very, very emotional, and she thanked me for telling him that. She thanked me for telling her that I believed in her because she said she really needed to hear that. Now, what was surprising about this is a student who was excelling. She was excelling on all of the assignments. She was doing great contributions in class discussions. She was probably the last student in that class that I would think would need for her to hear me say that I believed in her. And what this told me is that all of our students need to know this. All of our students need to know that we believe in them and they support them. Because the students may be struggling in ways that we can't see and can't anticipate, and they need to know that we are there to support them because they belong to be there with us. So this was a reminder for me that we need to tell our students that we believe in them and support them clearly, frequently, and authentically. Now, probably what was most amazing about this story, so again, I was sharing this with a colleague. The colleague then shared that he knew the student, and he had already heard the story from her perspective. Again, showing the impact of those words, that he had heard that I had done this and how meaningful it was to her. And this shows the power that we can have in instructors when we explicitly, clearly, and frequently, and authentically believe in our students and support their success. Now, having said all of that, this is positive feedback we've gotten from getting our ideas out there. Some of our feedback has been negative as well. Just this past week in that faculty focus piece that I had mentioned, talking about reasons to reconsider giving exams in class, we had gotten 3,000 views of that article on the first day that it was posted. This was really exciting for us. But then I read some comments, and the first two comments that I read were definitely not complimentary of those ideas. What I want to do for you now is actually read a couple of quotes from the negative comments we received. And these are more negative than any quotes I've ever gotten from a student evaluation of my teaching. So these are from other faculty members in my field. So from one commenter, they said, "Is this a serious paper or a parody? If this is serious, these so-called professors should return their PhDs and resign immediately. With these ridiculous constraints on learning, students will not learn and not be prepared for life and careers that aren't always fun or empathetic or equitable. The job is for students to master the material, not have fun." The commenter then goes on to say, "It is this radical insanity that is detached from reality and presents a very scary future. A future in which merit doesn't matter, work isn't valued, contributions don't matter, and in the end, nothing matters. Higher education has gone from preparing students for life to setting them up for failure in life. The reality on campus is increasingly detached from the reality of life." End quote. Another commenter said, "When did learning go from being challenged and growing to being a fun powder puff game? Please, can we go back to actually educating kids instead of coddling them? The latter is not doing them any favors or their future employers and families." These comments were surprising to me, to be quite honest. I was excited to have the article out there. I was excited to share my thoughts. So to see these first couple of comments be very negative, and by the way, they're longer than that and more negative than that, so you should check them out for yourself. Link is in the description. But to see those was surprising to me. But they probably shouldn't have been that surprising to me. These comments seem to convey a belief that there is a dichotomy between academic rigor and empathy. They seem to convey that academic rigor and empathy are mutually exclusive. Now, I've talked about my thoughts about academic rigor before, and we'll put that video up in that corner so you can peek at it. But basically, I think that rigor is challenge with support. What I'm afraid is that some people misunderstand academic rigor to be arbitrary difficulty. I don't believe in arbitrary difficulty. I believe in meaningful challenge with appropriate support. And I think we can meaningfully challenge and appropriately support our students in many ways. I think not giving exams in class does not necessarily mean my classes are not rigorous. I think that was a misunderstanding of the commenters. But it also suggests that they aren't really thinking innovatively about the ways that they can support their students. I think we should do that. What this highlighted for me is that what I do in my class and what you do in your classes might not be what everybody does in their classes. What works in my class for my students with my teaching philosophy and my teaching practices might not be the ones that will work for everyone. And I fully acknowledge and understand that. And I even said that in the article that I wrote. That's all fine. What we do as individual teachers has to be the things that we believe will support our students in learning best in the classes that we teach. What we do has to be consistent with the philosophies we have about teaching and the practices that we employ to teach our students well. And what this also highlighted for me is we should be aware of the reasons for why we have those philosophies and why we employ those practices. Not everyone may agree with those philosophies or practices, so we should be ready to explain and defend those as necessary. I think, and you've heard me say this a number of times, and you're going to keep hearing me say it, we should bring peace and empathy to our classes. We should invest in creating optimal experiences for both instructors and students and to maximize their engagement in the teaching and learning process so they learn as well as they can. When we do this, it's possible that our colleagues and our peers may not always get it, but our students will. And our students matter a lot. When we bring them peace and empathy, and when we explicitly, clearly, and frequently, and authentically support them in their learning and their success and articulate our belief in them, I think we are doing right by them, and I'm not going to apologize for that. So I'm going to keep bringing the peace and empathy as well as I can. I'm going to keep learning ways to do it better, and I hope that you do too. In the comments below, I would love to hear how you and your teachers are expressing their belief in you as students, belief in your learning, and how they support you. And I would like to hear how you make the classroom an inclusive and engaging place. So thank you for watching this week's episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.